Nestled in the heart of Austin, Texas, our home was a picturesque blend of modern comforts and nostalgic charm. The brick facade, covered in ivy, gave it a timeless feel, and the garden, meticulously maintained by my wife Anna, was a riot of colors throughout the year. We had been married for 15 years, a milestone that seemed to mark the beginning of our happily ever after. Our neighbors often commented on how perfect we seemed, a sentiment that I used to believe wholeheartedly. We had no children by choice, preferring to focus on each other and our respective careers. Anna worked as a graphic designer from home, her studio filled with sketches and half-finished projects. I was a software engineer, my days spent coding and troubleshooting in a bustling office downtown. Our life was a well-oiled machine, each of us playing our part to keep things running smoothly. Our house was our sanctuary. The spacious living room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, allowed natural light to flood in, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. The kitchen was Anna's domain, where she spent hours experimenting with new recipes, her laughter echoing as she playfully scolded me for sampling ingredients. Upstairs, our bedroom was a peaceful retreat, decorated in soothing blues and whites, a stark contrast to the storm that was about to upend our lives. As I looked back, the signs were there, subtle but unmistakable. I just didn't want to see them. Anna had always been the social one, her calendar filled with lunches and coffee dates, her phone buzzing with messages from friends. But lately something had shifted. She had become more secretive, her phone always within arm's reach, her laughter quieter, almost forced. Our home, once filled with easy conversation and shared dreams, had grown silent, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air. The vibrant garden, the sunlit rooms, the cozy evenings, they all seemed like distant memories, overshadowed by a growing sense of unease. This was the beginning of a story I never thought would be mine, a story of betrayal, discovery, and the long road to reclaiming my life. The first hint that something was amiss came during one of Anna's girl nights out. She used to go out once or twice a month with her friends, always coming home tipsy and happy, recounting the night's adventures with a sparkle in her eye. But lately, these nights had become more frequent, and her stories less detailed. Instead of her usual effervescent recounting, she'd give me a vague summary before heading to bed. One evening, she came home late, well past midnight. She smelled of perfume, a scent I didn't recognize. It wasn't the floral notes she usually wore, but something musky and exotic. I asked her about it, jokingly, but she brushed it off, claiming one of her friends had given her a new perfume to try. Her explanation seemed plausible, but it didn't sit right with me. Anna's behavior continued to shift. She started dressing differently, opting for more provocative outfits than her usual casual chic. When I commented on her new wardrobe, she dismissed it, saying she wanted to feel more confident and youthful. It was a reasonable enough explanation, yet coupled with her other changes, it fueled my growing doubts. Her phone became another point of contention. Anna had always been open with her devices, leaving them around the house without a second thought. But now her phone was always with her, even when she went to the bathroom. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen or turn it face down. One night, as we sat on the couch watching TV, a message notification popped up. She grabbed the phone and hurriedly silenced it, her fingers flying over the screen as she typed a response. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Oh, just Jessica," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "She's having some issues at work and needed advice." I nodded, but the seed of suspicion was already planted. Jessica was one of her closest friends, but they rarely texted late at night. As the weeks passed, these late-night messages became more frequent, and Anna's explanations more strained. Our intimacy also took a hit. We had always been affectionate, our sex life an integral part of our relationship. But recently, Anna had been distant, often claiming she was too tired or not in the mood. When we did make love, it felt mechanical, devoid of the passion we once shared. I could feel her pulling away, and it tore at me, leaving me restless and anxious. One afternoon, while I was working from home, I overheard a phone conversation between Anna and one of her friends. She mentioned a work project that was taking up a lot of her time and energy. It struck me as odd because she hadn't mentioned any new projects to me. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I decided to dig deeper. I started paying closer attention to her schedule, noting the nights she went out, and the times she received those mysterious messages. I even checked our bank statements, looking for any unusual transactions. That's when I found charges for expensive dinners and hotel rooms, places we had never been together. My heart sank as I realized the magnitude of what these signs could mean. Still, I couldn't bring myself to confront her without solid proof. I needed to be sure before I turned our lives upside down. The growing suspicion gnawed at me, a constant nagging presence that I couldn't shake. It felt like I was living with a stranger, the woman I loved slipping further away with each passing day. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon. Anna had gone out for brunch with friends, and I decided to use the time to search her studio. It was something I never thought I'd do, invading her privacy in such a way, but I was desperate for answers. I rifled through her desk drawers, her laptop, even her sketchbooks, looking for anything that might confirm my fears. In the bottom drawer of her desk, hidden beneath a stack of papers, I found a small, locked box. My heart pounded as I held it, knowing that whatever was inside could change everything. I searched for the key, eventually finding it taped to the underside of the drawer. With trembling hands, I unlocked the box and opened it. Inside, I found a collection of items that made my blood run cold. Hotel receipts, lingerie I had never seen before, and a series of love letters signed by someone named David. The discovery hit me like a physical blow, the reality of Anna's betrayal crashing down around me. I sat there for what felt like hours, the evidence spread out before me, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of loss. This was the proof I had dreaded finding, the confirmation of my worst fears. I knew I had to confront her, but I needed to do it carefully. I needed to gather more evidence, to understand the full extent of her infidelity before I made my move. This was only the beginning of a journey that would test my strength and resolve in ways I could never have imagined. The following days were a blur of agony and meticulous planning. Every interaction with Anna felt like walking on broken glass, my heart aching with each forced smile and casual touch. I watched her closely, noting her patterns and behaviors, biding my time until I could gather undeniable evidence. One evening, I told Anna I had a business trip scheduled for the weekend. She barely reacted, a faint flicker of relief crossing her face before she masked it with a concerned smile. "Are you sure you have to go? We haven't had much time together lately," she said, her voice laced with insincerity. "Yeah, it's important," I replied, forcing a smile. "I'll be back by Sunday evening." She nodded, not pressing the matter further, and I went upstairs to pack a small bag, adding to the charade. I left the house early the next morning, driving to a nearby hotel where I could set up a temporary base. My mind was racing, knowing that today was the day I would uncover the full extent of her betrayal. That afternoon, I returned to our neighborhood, parking my car a few blocks away and walking back to the house. I moved stealthily, using the cover of bushes and trees to approach without being seen. From my vantage point, I saw Anna's car parked in the driveway, along with another vehicle I didn't recognize. My pulse quickened, a mix of dread and determination fueling my steps. I crept around to the back of the house, using the spare key I had hidden in the garden to let myself in through the back door. The house was eerily silent, but I could hear faint sounds coming from upstairs. My heart pounded in my chest as I ascended the stairs, each step feeling like an eternity. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I could hear muffled voices and laughter. Peering through the crack in the door, I saw Anna and a man I assumed was David. They were in bed together, their clothes discarded in a heap on the floor. The sight of them entwined, their bodies moving in a rhythm of intimacy, was a knife to my heart. I wanted to burst in, to scream in rage, but I needed to control myself. I needed to catch them in the act, to ensure there was no way for them to deny what they had done. I pulled out my phone, recording the scene for a few agonizing moments. It felt wrong, invasive, but I knew it was necessary. Finally, I could no longer bear to watch. I shoved the door open with a force that made it slam against the wall. Anna and David sprang apart, their faces a mix of shock and terror. "What the fuck is this?" I roared, my voice trembling with fury. Anna scrambled to cover herself with the sheets, her eyes wide with panic. "John, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were on a business trip. I should be asking you the same question," I spat, my gaze shifting to David. Who the hell are you? David, clearly intimidated, stammered, I didn't know. You didn't know what? I interrupted, advancing on him. That you were fucking another man's wife in his own bed? Anna tried to intervene, her voice frantic. John, please, calm down. We can talk about this. Talk about this? I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and filled with pain. There's nothing to talk about, Anna. You've been lying to me, betraying me for God knows how long. David, sensing the danger, attempted to grab his clothes and leave. But I wasn't going to let him off that easily. I lunged at him, my fists connecting with his face in a blur of anger. He staggered back, blood spurting from his nose. Get out! Anna screamed, tears streaming down her face. John, stop it! But I couldn't stop. The anger and betrayal fueled my actions, each punch a release of the agony I'd been harboring. David tried to fight back, but he was no match for the fury driving me. I landed a final blow, sending him crashing to the floor, dazed and bleeding. Get the fuck out of my house, I growled, standing over him. And if I ever see you again, you'll regret it. David scrambled to his feet, clutching his clothes to his chest as he bolted from the room. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house, leaving Anna and me alone in the wreckage of our life together. Anna collapsed on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. John, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, we can fix this. Fix this? I repeated, my voice breaking. Anna, you destroyed everything. Our trust, our love, our marriage. How can we possibly fix that? She reached out to me, but I recoiled, unable to bear her touch. I need you to leave, I said quietly, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I can't look at you right now. Please, John, she begged, but I was resolute. Leave, Anna. Go to a friend's house. Go anywhere. Just get out of my sight. She gathered her clothes, her sobs filling the room as she dressed. Without another word, she walked out, the sound of the door closing behind her a painful reminder of the finality of what had just happened. As the silence enveloped the house, I sank to the floor, the enormity of the betrayal crashing down on me. This was the beginning of a long, painful journey, a journey that would test my strength, my resolve, and my very sense of self. But it was a journey I had to undertake, one step at a time, to rebuild the life that had been shattered so completely. The days that followed Anna's departure were filled with a cold, calculating rage. I couldn't just let her get away with tearing our life apart, and I sure as hell couldn't let David walk away unscathed. They had to face the consequences of their actions. I spent hours plotting my next move, the desire for revenge burning fiercely within me. The first step was to gather more information about David. With the help of a private investigator, I uncovered his address, his workplace, and even his routine. He worked at a nearby advertising firm, a slick professional who thought he could seduce another man's wife and get away with it. Armed with this information, I began my campaign. I anonymously sent emails to his boss and colleagues, detailing his affair with Anna and including the video evidence I had recorded. I knew it would ruin his reputation and potentially cost him his job, but that was just the beginning. I wanted him to feel the same humiliation and loss that I did. Next, I targeted his personal life. I found out he was engaged, set to marry a woman named Rachel in a few months. It was easy enough to find her social media profiles and contact information. I sent her an anonymous message, attaching the damning video and a detailed account of his infidelity. I knew it would devastate her, but she deserved to know the truth about the man she was planning to marry. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. David was suspended from his job pending an investigation, and Rachel called off the engagement in a very public, very humiliating confrontation at his office. Word spread quickly, and soon David found himself ostracized by his colleagues and friends. He tried to reach out to me, to plead for some kind of understanding, but I blocked his number and ignored his emails. There was no place for forgiveness in my heart. But my revenge didn't stop with David. Anna had to face her own reckoning. I withdrew all the money from our joint accounts, leaving her with nothing. I canceled her credit cards and changed the locks on the house. She was left with no access to our financial resources, a fitting punishment for her betrayal. I also made sure her social circle knew about her infidelity. I sent the same video and a detailed message to our friends and her family. The scandal was explosive, and the backlash was swift. Her friends turned on her, disgusted by her actions, and her family disowned her. ashamed of the disgrace she had brought upon them. Anna, once the social butterfly, found herself isolated and alone, with no one to turn to. The final step of my plan was to confront Anna in a public setting, to make sure she felt the full weight of her actions. I chose a busy cafe, a place where we used to go on Sunday mornings. I knew she would be there, trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy in her shattered life. I walked in, the eyes of the patrons turning towards me as I approached her table. She looked up, her eyes widening in shock and fear. Without a word, I pulled out a folder and slammed it on the table. Inside were copies of the emails I had sent, the responses from her friends and family, and a printed account of everything I had done to David. "Look at what you've done," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Look at the destruction you've caused." Anna's hands trembled as she opened the folder, her face paling as she read through the documents. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but I felt no sympathy. She had brought this upon herself. "You think you can destroy our life and walk away unscathed?" I continued, my voice rising. "You think you can betray me and not face the consequences?" "John, please," she whispered, her voice broken. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry doesn't fix this," I spat, my anger boiling over. "Sorry doesn't erase the pain, the betrayal. You've ruined everything, Anna, and now you have to live with the consequences." I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing at the table, the weight of her actions crashing down on her. As I stepped out into the bright sunlight, a sense of grim satisfaction washed over me. I had taken my revenge, made them pay for their betrayal. It wouldn't erase the pain or bring back what I had lost, but it gave me a sense of closure, a way to reclaim some control over my shattered life. With the weight of revenge lifted from my shoulders, I knew it was time to focus on rebuilding my life. It wouldn't be easy, and the scars of betrayal would never fully heal, but I was determined to move forward, to find a new path free from the shadows of the past. A few weeks had passed since my public confrontation with Anna. I had tried to move on, to bury the memories and start fresh, but the wounds were still raw. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger and sadness battling for dominance. I knew that I needed closure, a final conversation to put everything behind me. One evening, I received a text from Anna asking to meet. She wanted to talk, to explain herself. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to leave the past where it belonged, but another part of me craved answers. I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet park where we used to take walks together. As I arrived at the park, I saw Anna sitting on a bench, her eyes puffy from crying. She looked different, the confident, vibrant woman I had married, now a shadow of her former self. I took a deep breath and walked over, sitting down next to her without saying a word. "John," she began, her voice trembling, "thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to talk to you, to try and explain." I remained silent, my eyes fixed on the horizon. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and nothing I say can ever undo the damage I've caused," she said, her voice breaking. "But I need you to understand why it happened." "Why?" I finally spoke, my voice cold. "Why did you betray me, Anna? Why did you destroy everything we built together?" Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to find the words. "I was lonely, John. You were always working, always away. I felt like I was invisible, like I didn't matter to you anymore." "That's bullshit," I snapped, my anger flaring. "I was working to provide for us, to give us a good life. You knew that." "I know," she sobbed. "I know you were doing it for us, but I felt so alone. I needed someone to make me feel alive, to make me feel wanted." "So you turned to David," I said bitterly. "You thought sleeping with another man would fix everything." "It wasn't like that," she protested. "It started as just a friendship, but it got out of hand. I never meant for it to go that far." "But it did," I replied, my voice hard. "And you kept lying, kept sneaking around behind my back. You destroyed our trust, Anna." "I know," she whispered, "and I hate myself for it. I've lost everything, my friends, my family, you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know that I never stopped loving you." "Love?" I scoffed. You call this love? You shattered my heart, Anna. You left me in pieces. She reached out, trying to take my hand, but I pulled away. I'm so sorry, John, she cried. I would do anything to take it all back, to make things right. You can't, I said firmly. It's too late for that. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. Silence hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I could see the pain in her eyes, the regret. But it didn't change anything. The damage was done, and there was no going back. I'm filing for divorce, I said finally, my voice steady. I can't do this anymore, Anna. We're done. She nodded, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I understand, she whispered. I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry, and I'll always love you. I stood up, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. Goodbye, Anna, I said, turning to leave. Goodbye, John, she replied, her voice barely audible. As I walked away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The chapter with Anna was closed, the final conversation providing a sense of closure that I desperately needed. It was time to move forward, to rebuild my life from the ashes of our shattered marriage. The future was uncertain, and the road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to face it. I had survived the worst, and now it was time to find a new beginning. The weeks leading up to the trial were a blur of legal documents, meetings with my lawyer, and sleepless nights. The betrayal, the anger, and the sorrow all swirled together, but I knew I had to stay focused. My lawyer, Emily, was a sharp and tenacious professional who had seen her fair share of messy divorces. She guided me through each step, ensuring I was prepared for what lay ahead. On the morning of the trial, I arrived at the courthouse early, my nerves taut as a bowstring. Emily met me at the entrance, her presence a steadying force. Remember, John, she said firmly, stay calm and stick to the facts. Don't let her lawyer provoke you. I nodded, taking a deep breath. The courtroom was a stark, intimidating place, the air thick with tension. I took my seat, feeling the weight of the moment bearing down on me. Anna arrived shortly after, looking frail and exhausted. She avoided my gaze as she took her place beside her lawyer, a smarmy man named Greg, who exuded a confidence that grated on my nerves. The judge entered, and the trial began. Greg started with a narrative designed to paint Anna in a sympathetic light. He spoke of her loneliness, her feelings of abandonment, and how she had struggled to cope with my absence. He described the affair as a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment fueled by emotional distress. I listened, my anger simmering beneath the surface. When it was Emily's turn, she laid out the evidence methodically, the bank statements, the hotel receipts, the video of their betrayal. She emphasized the deceit, the calculated nature of the affair, and the impact it had on our marriage. Anna took the stand, tears streaming down her face as she recounted her version of events. She apologized profusely, expressing regret for her actions and the pain she had caused. It was a performance meant to elicit sympathy, but I could see through it. I had lived with her lies for too long to be swayed by her tears now. When it was my turn to testify, I focused on the facts. I spoke of the changes in her behavior, the late-night messages, and the day I discovered her infidelity. I described the emotional toll it had taken on me, the sleepless nights, and the sense of betrayal that had consumed me. Emily guided me through my testimony, her questions sharp and precise. Greg tried to rattle me with his cross-examination, suggesting that my demanding job and frequent absences had driven Anna to seek comfort elsewhere. I stood my ground, refusing to be baited. Mr. Hayes, Greg said, his tone oily, do you not think that your prolonged absences and dedication to your work contributed to your wife's feelings of loneliness and isolation? I was working to provide for us, I replied evenly. I trusted Anna, and I believed in our marriage. Her actions were a betrayal of that trust. Greg smirked, but he couldn't shake me. The truth was on my side, and I was determined to see this through. After hours of testimony and legal arguments, the judge called for a recess. I stepped outside, the cool air a welcome relief from the stifling tension of the courtroom. Emily joined me, her expression thoughtful. You're doing great, John, she said. Just a little longer and this will all be over. The recess ended, and we returned to the courtroom for the final statements. Greg made one last attempt to cast Anna as a victim of circumstance, but Emily countered with a powerful closing argument that emphasized personal responsibility and the sanctity of trust in a marriage. The judge deliberated for what felt like an eternity before finally delivering the verdict. The divorce was granted, with the division of assets favoring me significantly. Anna was ordered to vacate the house and return a substantial amount of money that she had taken from our accounts. There was no alimony. The judge deemed her actions egregious enough to forfeit any claim to support. As the verdict was read, I felt a mixture of relief and vindication. The legal battle was over, and I had come out on top. Anna sat silently, her face a mask of resignation. She had lost not only the marriage, but also the financial security she had taken for granted. Emily shook my hand, her smile warm. "You did it, John. Now you can start rebuilding your life." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The trial had been grueling, but it was a necessary step towards reclaiming my future. As I left the courthouse, the sun breaking through the clouds felt like a promise of better days ahead. I had faced the storm and come out stronger, ready to embrace the new beginning that awaited me. The days following the trial were filled with a sense of liberation. The weight of the past, with its betrayals and heartbreak, had been lifted, and I was determined to rebuild my life on my own terms. The house, once a symbol of our shattered marriage, became my sanctuary as I worked to create a space that reflected my newfound independence. I started with small changes, repainting the walls and rearranging the furniture, creating a fresh environment free from the ghosts of my past. Each change, each new addition, was a step towards reclaiming my life and my identity. My work became a refuge. I threw myself into projects, finding solace in the familiar routines and challenges. My colleagues, who had been supportive throughout the ordeal, noticed the change in me. There was a newfound determination in my approach, a resolve to move forward and leave the pain behind. Paul, my coworker and friend, invited me to join him for a weekend hiking trip, a welcome distraction and a chance to reconnect with nature. The crisp air and breathtaking views were a balm for my soul, reminding me of the beauty and possibilities that lay ahead. "You're looking good, John," Paul remarked as we stood atop a hill. The city sprawled out below us. "I can see the change in you." "Thanks, Paul," I replied, taking in the view. "It feels good to finally be moving forward." The trip was a turning point, a reminder that life had much to offer beyond the pain of betrayal. I returned home with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to embrace the future. My social circle began to expand as well. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, finding joy in simple gatherings and shared experiences. My sister, whom I had grown distant from during my marriage, became a constant presence in my life. Her support and encouragement were invaluable as I navigated this new chapter. One evening, as we sat on my porch, sipping wine and watching the sunset, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, John, you're stronger than you give yourself credit for," she said. "You've been through hell, but you're still standing." "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted, grateful for her unwavering support. "That's what family is for," she replied, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass with hers. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself gradually healing. The anger and sadness that had consumed me began to fade, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. Therapy sessions with Dr. Ellis helped me process the emotions and understand the complexities of my feelings. His guidance was instrumental in helping me rebuild my confidence and self-worth. One day, while browsing a local bookstore, I bumped into Erin, a woman I had met briefly at a work event. She was an artist, passionate and vibrant, with a zest for life that was infectious. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself drawn to her energy and warmth. "How have you been?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Better," I replied honestly. "It's been a tough year, but I'm finally finding my footing." "I'm glad to hear that," she said with a smile. "Would you like to grab a coffee sometime? I'd love to catch up." I hesitated for a moment, the scars of the past making me wary of opening up again. But something about Erin's genuine interest and kindness made me take a chance. "Sure," I said, feeling a spark of excitement. "I'd like that." Our coffee date turned into a series of meetings, each one filled with laughter and deep conversations. Erin's presence was like a breath of fresh air, a reminder that it was possible to find happiness and connection again. She introduced me to her world of art and creativity, and I found myself inspired by her passion and perspective. As our relationship grew, so did my confidence. I learned to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of love without fear of betrayal. Erin was patient and understanding, never pushing but always encouraging me to embrace the present and look forward to the future. One evening, as we walked hand in hand along the riverbank, she stopped and looked at me, her expression serious. "John, I know your past has been painful, but I see so much strength in you," she said softly. "You deserve happiness, and I want to be a part of that journey with you." Tears filled my eyes as I realized the depth of her words. "Thank you, Erin," I whispered. "You've shown me that it's possible to love again, to find joy after the pain." We stood there, the river flowing gently beside us, a symbol of the passage of time and the promise of new beginnings. In Erin, I had found a partner who understood my journey and shared my vision for the future. Life after betrayal was not easy, but it was a journey worth taking. Each step forward was a testament to my resilience, a reminder that I had the strength to overcome the darkest of times. As I looked ahead, I knew that the road would still have its challenges, but with Erin by my side and the support of my friends and family, I was ready to face whatever came next. The future was bright, filled with possibilities and the promise of a new life built on trust, love, and the hard-earned wisdom that comes from surviving the worst and emerging stronger.